regional economic plans is to have communities are able to pull portions out of for their own communities. So if the town of Derry or the town of Londonderry was doing a regional economic development plan, and we have a regional economic plan that had the data in there, they could pull that information. So, I mean, it's a valuable tool for communities.
I know Town Councilor Carden here in Derry is putting together an economic development committee for the town, so I bet some of this would be very much of interest to his
very helpful. And then transportation. I mean, more and more of these transportation projects are falling in with the responsibilities of municipalities. So it's good to kind of keep that information going about what their needs are and what we as a regional planning commission can do to get funding to solve some of these big ticket items. A case in point was I-93. The Regional Planning Commission was always up in front in trying to get funding and to get the construction going to complete I-93. And we're also up in front in doing the same with providing passenger rail to the central corridor of the state, which would benefit not only the people in the Nashua-Manchester corridor, but it will basically provide great opportunities for the entire state.
What, speaking of that, we hear about the passenger rail, the Capital Corridor study, and some of these, and I know for those who might not be familiar, kind of basically connecting to rail down in Lowell, but coming up along kind of the Route 3 corridor, Nashua, Manchester Boston Regional Airport, downtown Manchester, and then possibly up to Concord.
Correct. Correct.
So that's kind of along the Route 3 corridor. How does something like that benefit the 93 corridor that we are?
It does a lot. Number one, it relieves a lot of the congestion that you may have in the future on I-93 and Route 3. It also is a stimulus for economic development. In Londonderry, as well as Derry, you will have access to rail in this region. And by having access, you have an option of how to travel to Boston for your jobs. You won't be stuck on 93 in Massachusetts for 2 or 3 hours. You have another option. And so there are benefits. Mm-hmm. And there's economic development benefits. In the study for the Capital Corridor, we kind of just focused on the Nashua and Manchester, but the benefits is for the entire state.
And I know this isn't your primary responsibility, selling, kind of marketing that plan, but I would think that the more people who are really pushing that could talk about benefits to the rest of the state and to southern New Hampshire in general.
It's like saying, when the water rises, all the ships benefit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important when we're talking about the Capital Corridor. Because what benefits in Londonderry with its close access to the Manchester airport and a possible rail, it benefits all the state and also Manchester. So, and one of our objectives with the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is to really plan multimodal. So it's just not highway and bridges. It's also public transit, bus, passenger rail, but it also brings into account other transportation options like making our streets pedestrian friendly, and making sure that the rails to trails, bicyclists, they're
great trail here in Derry and one in Londonderry.
Very good. And that's going to be connected to Manchester, Goffstown, New Boston, and hopefully to Concord. So again, that's a form of transportation. Absolutely. And that's a part of the whole multimodal mix.
Well, given that your organization, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, really does take that kind of broad regional view, and is probably one of the only organizations that does so. Of course, the Chamber, we're a regional organization as well, so I certainly can appreciate that. What do you see, you and your staff, as some of the more pressing regions or issues that our region faces?
Well, there's two things going on here. The population is going to increase because of the expansion of 93. And we've done numerous studies to kind of have an idea of what to expect. It's not going to be at the same magnitude of what we experienced in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. But it's still going to be an increase. And the communities that are going to be affected by this is Windham, Derry, Londonderry, Bedford, and Manchester. So we need to work with the communities to make sure that they're ready for this increased growth. That's number one. And also number two is the fact that our population is aging. And most of the people would like to age at home. So that is a totally different scenario that we need to start planning for. How do we plan and provide services such as transit, housing, and other medical services to this growing, aging baby boomers that we're going to be faced with? And it also provides us with lots of opportunities too in the future.
What opportunities do you see?
Opportunities because we talk about the silver tsunami, the terrible impacts, but there's going to be a lot of benefits involved. People are working longer, and they're working at multiple jobs, and so that's one thing. But I think we need to start addressing how we can facilitate that. The other thing is we're having an out-migration of young professionals from this state. They're moving where the high, the educated jobs are located at in Boston, New York, and other parts. Mm-hmm. We need to somehow retain this talent, this labor force in the States. And that's crucial, for a balanced, region economically. The other thing that we are facing now, and we're not just the region, not the state, not New England, not the US, it's globally, and that's climate change. And you may not want to accept it, but it's here, and we are already seeing the effects. The high swings of weather, flooding, drought, and we need to have a plan in place to deal with that. And it's just simply adaptation. How do we make our houses energy efficient? What types of transportation can we employ? Where should we build development in the future so it won't be flooded out?
Well, it certainly sounds those are all big challenges. Of climate change, probably the biggest among them, but
yes.
The population.
Because we really don't have any power. We're a very small region, speakingly, in a very small state, and we're having to deal with the impacts of this that we really have no control over. So we need to adapt to it and come up with ways to make the next 35 years or 25 years so that our children doesn't have to bear the brunt of the impacts.
So whether it's trying to address some of the effects of climate change, or the graying of the population, or increase in residents due to the highway expansion.
Exactly.
What does the Planning Commission have any thoughts on what some potential solutions might be for those next 25, 30, 50 years?
Well, in our regional comprehensive plan, we did address climate change and come up with recommendations that communities and residents could employ in trying to adapt to kind of take a handle on this. The hazards mitigation plans that we developed for Homeland Security is another great source of information. I don't think we really addressed the aging baby boom. We mention it, but we really need to have a focus on what we need to do to better serve this growing demographics in our region. We've done a lot of work on the population increase from I-93. And the Planning Commission is always available to work with local communities in helping them get through this.
Great. Sounds like there's certainly no end of work.
No, there isn't.
Commission.
And there's a lot of challenges, but that's what we're here for, is to provide a technical assistance to our communities.
Well, I always hate to end on a challenging, more on the negative side note. So tell me, as we wrap up, what do you see as regionally speaking, what do we have going for us? What are some of our positives that you see? We're
in the heart of New Hampshire. You hear that we're only an hour away from Boston, an hour away from Boston on good days when the traffic is moving.
Right.
But an hour away from the mountains, an hour away from the seacoast. We're at a prime location. We're also kind of in the center of a high university college region. We have more students in all those, at SNU, UNH Manchester, the community college, and other schools than they do in Durham. This is something that we really should kind of embrace and then come up with a way to kind of keep the graduates in our region, in our communities. So we have a lot, and between the high quality of life and also the academia, I think we have a lot going for us.
I would agree.
Right.
I wouldn't say otherwise as a Chamber of Commerce president.
No, but I think we have a lot. We have a lot going for us.
We do indeed.
And we should be kind of emphasizing that at all times.
So again, before we wrap up, is there anything that I did not ask you, or you'd like to share or let us know about the Planning Commission? And
again, we're working on several very creative economic initiatives for Derry. One of them is the Robert Frost Scenic Byway, which basically is a scenic byway, a road that connects Hempstead, Atkinson, Derry, Auburn, and Chester. I think there's 5 communities, kind of highlighting the fact that one of the original stagecoach paths from Boston to Concord is there, but also celebrating the life of Robert Frost, because many of the places along the scenic byway are areas that he writes about in his poetry. And we have people coming in from the world to come and see Robert Frost and to experience what he experienced when he was writing this. This is a big economic development opportunity for Derry, because we have one of the houses of Robert Frost. And we just need to market it, because I think a lot of economic development, it doesn't have to do with big industrial parks. I mean, that helps, but a big component of that is tourism and things that we can do without a high cost attached to it.
So promoting it, get people here while they're here, say, visiting the farm. They'll also get a meal on their way in and out of town, fill up their gas tank.
Exactly. There's a lot of things going on, and the Scenic Byway is one tool to kind of highlight that and to bring them in.
Absolutely. I'm certainly look forward to working with you to promote that and the region.
Yeah, and we have a similar project in Londonderry called the Appleway, and we've just completed the corridor management plan with the town of Londonderry, and we're finishing one for the Robert Frost Scenic Byway. So again, it's bringing the towns together. It's basically saying, okay, what do we need to do to kind of heighten, to improve the Scenic Byway so it becomes a great experience for everybody.
So when will those 2 scenic byways be ready to go public, as it were?
Well, the Londonderry is already ready to go. It's been approved. And we have the Robert Frost has been designated by the state. It's already on the books, and we're finishing up the corridor management plan.
Okay.
So one of the things we're hoping to do with the Robert Frost is to have a website and to start marketing it. So I think people, I mean,